It should do it,
We
right?
gotta, I don't know what happened, you gotta let people in.
I don't know, that is something we need to speak with her about.
So you can find it. You know, and that, by the way, the Kruger character, who is close to Antifa, took off all of his social media. Well, we kept.
You probably have someone.
And as a vicious man, he wrote horrible things.
No worries, but, I went through her email, so she has it.
Including wars. And he specifically says that they're gonna fix this election. I don't know what you need.
That's the laptop.
Okay, sorry for the move.
Hey, chap,
Hi, Mark.
I was just looking through my old junk emails. I found one from you about the flag. They put a new flag up about a month ago.
Yeah, well, it's invisible. I'm
The
not
flag?
talking about the US flag. I'm
Yeah,
talking
got a
about the
brand new one.
Sterling Oaks pendant,
Oh, the pendant.
the pennant or whatever it's called.
Oh,
The
that
little
little
white-
triangular thing.
Yeah,
Oh, that needs to be replaced. Oh. All right, I'll see if Alan's got some.
certainly not an emergency.
You got the financials?
Yeah, I got them last night. I'll give everyone the highlights. It's good.
Actually,
You're more than welcome to submit a request to have the tree removed, you know, when the time comes to, or even now, or when the time comes when you wanna do the driveway, that way you can. I mean, one way to do it is like fill in the crack and paint the driveway, it's not really a long-term solution, but it's a, you know, a quick fix. And then another, you know, alternative is to replace it with plain concrete or pavers. Most people do the paver route. Well, you know, like if something does shift, just kind of fix the area of pavers, not, you know, replacing the whole driveway. They generally, you know, it's either smaller, every year, every once in a while.
Hi, guys.
Hi, John.
Hey, John.
Hi, Brownie.
Hey, Terry.
Hello there. Good afternoon.
Hi.
Hi, Lindy.
Hi.
Oh, Lydia, I
Hey.
couldn't see you. All I could see is your head before. I didn't know that was you.
Hi, how are you, John? Nice to
Good,
see you.
good,
Are you-
good.
You're still home?
Yeah, actually, we're changing our plans. We are gonna come down next week.
Oh, good, because I recognize your background. So I knew you were
Yeah.
still home. Well, good, I'm glad
Yeah,
you're.
we weren't gonna come down until after Christmas, but the kids and the grandkids don't want to get together with us. They're afraid they might spread something to us, so we figured no use sitting up here without being able to get together. So we decided we're gonna come down.
Great, good, I think that's a good idea. What's your weather?
The weather's not too hot up here. It's cool. We're
Yeah.
wearing jackets and sweatshirts.
Yeah,
So I want to get into Bermudas and t-shirts.
I know.
Looking forward to it.
The weather here is nice.
Yeah, I checked the weather down there. It looks like it's going to be like 82
That's
practically
tough to
every
take.
day. So
It's beautiful.
can't wait.
Tough life.
Yeah.
Hi, Lanny.
Hey,
Hi,
Terry.
Lanny.
Hey, John.
Hey, Michael.
Hey, how are you?
Hi, Michael.
Hello, you all.
Oh, yeah.
Hola.
Hola.
Hello, everyone.
¿Cómo estás?
Jack.
¿Cómo está?
Este bien.
Bien.
¿Cómo va tú?
Bien. Et vous?
Bien, gracias.
Just
Aren't
say
we a
hey.
bunch of polyglots?
That's okay. That's my 5 years of French 1.
Yeah, my wife would be proud of you, Terry.
I guess.
Who are we waiting on? Jack?
I
I'm
think
here.
Jack's here. Hi,
Jack's here.
Jack.
Brownie?
Brownie's here.
Oh, I didn't see Brownie.
Yeah, not everybody fits on one screen.
You have everybody.
Yeah,
I
know.
got everybody on my screen.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I
5,
don't have
6,
Brownie on mine.
We have
7,
11 people on this screen, including Cezanne and Mark.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
That's easy. to say, but
You
I
got a
don't.
full house.
8, 9. I guess we're set. All you have to do is
I don't
touch it.
have Brownie.
I'll be right back.
Yeah. So I have 8 people on mine.
Can you expand your screen?
Yeah, I mean, I keep doing it. I got the arrows. I'm going. I just don't see Brownie. Oh, there he is.
You must have censored some people without knowing it.
Yeah, Brownie's not worth looking at anyway.
Oh, I don't think he can hear you.
Well, that's a good thing then. 'Cause-
Maybe he doesn't have his audio on.
It doesn't say Jay.
Okie dokie. Shall we call the meeting to order?
I think that's a good idea.
Okay. So, Madam Secretary, do we have a quorum?
We do.
Very good. Do we have members speaking?
We have a letter submitted by Gerald Chase that Lindy is going to read.
Okay, Linda, if you will.
Yes, this is a letter from Cheryl Chase in regards to the welcome back party that we held.
The event, you mean?
The event. She called it a party, but it is an event. I just want to thank the management, Nicole and her staff and the activities committee for putting together such a lovely party in a very safe environment. We were hesitant about attending and even staying, not knowing how it would be, but we could not have felt more comfortable. I realized how difficult it must be to plan events and to work under the current conditions. But I must say that Sterling Oaks did an outstanding job on the welcome back party. Kudos to all involved, many thanks, and continue to stay safe. Cheryl Chase.
Very good. Any other members speaking?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay, let's move to Secretary's report. Linda?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the October 29th, 2020 board meeting.
Second,
Okay, any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
aye.
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 Passes unanimously. Good job, Linda. We'll go to the president's report. I have an abbreviated report this time. I only have a comment to make to the board. It's been my observation that probably we are in the best financial shape that we've been in 2 decades. And I feel really good about that, particularly with COVID looming this year. I think we've come out of this fiscal year in very good stead. And as much as I'd like to give all the credit to Chad,
Oh, no. I just report the numbers.
I guess I will anyway. Why not? So with that, let's carry on with the meeting, and I'll just remark that we're already at item number 6. So hopefully we can get through this meeting in less than 3.5 hours. So Mark, I'll hand the baton off to you for your manager's report.
All right, this is a shorter report than last time. Hopefully it won't take us 2.5 hours to get through this. The pool shade shelter, which is still being named by the activities committee. They have had a meeting, and I can only tell you that they've come up with 20 different names. So it's still in production, but
It wouldn't be a committee then.
right. It was designed to be a horse. It's now a camel. So anyways, the shade shelter that's down there, we originally talked about putting curtains on the west and the south side. I asked the company to give us the proposals for the roll down curtains on all the open areas except for where you would enter from the cabana, which would be right adjacent on the north side to the women's bathroom. And I had given a quote to and talked to the EC about that, and that's 8 actual independently remote controlled roll down shades. I can show you if your cameras are working that it's actually a fabric like this, and you can see through it, but it is a dark fabric, and so therefore it's also would be thin and thick enough to repel the wind, the rain, and really slow things down. So once again, these are you can see me right through it. So it would stop a lot of the sunshine, the wind. It'd be a great asset there. Next is the condo.
A couple questions. Do we have a sense of how much light that's going to block?
Well, hold up the screen again.
You can see my window over here. There's how much it would block there.
Okay.
You can see me behind there, but you can see as you go back that it actually would block it. So yeah, it's a roll down shade. It would block a lot of the sunshine and really repel a lot of that southwest sunshine that gets so hot.
Yeah. My question is just whether it's going to block too much. I'm wondering, is there any way that the top could be dark and the bottom could be lighter? No.
All one
But
day.
you can drop it down a certain degree. It doesn't have to go
Yeah,
all the
you
way
can roll it
down.
up and down.
Okay, so that could be an option. And what happened to the exploring the idea of enclosing it totally or fencing it so that it could be used at night and kept separate from the pool? We talked about that last time. You said you'd explore it.
That would just require a completely new fence and access control across, from the cabana to the bathroom, which I haven't figured out logistically how to make that specifically work yet. So that's a whole different trying to get it so that people are able to get in the back gate, but not any of the other gates, and then be stopped once they got into the
Right.
shelter. You'd have to have another gate then on the other side that would have to be open when the place was open. And, they're logistically trying to figure that out through TEM as well as something we haven't gotten anything back from them as well. We're waiting. That's
Okay, but you're looking into it.
looking into it. Yep. It's just that
Okay,
the way the place is set up, it would require quite a bit of probably changes to the existing environment.
And we'll see how this works in the interim. And Jack?
Well, I thought last time we talked, we tried to figure out if there was a way to keep the pool open and keep the bar open at night. And I thought we said that if we had wait staff on board and maybe one additional light or two onto the pool, that we'd be able to do that. And I don't know that we made a decision, and I think we'll wait and see how things go. But I thought that was going to be the solution, not another series of gates and locks and draconian measures to keep people out of the area.
Terry?
Yeah, I agree with Jack. I think if we go the way it is going to go now and give it a time to breathe, that we may be able to come through with Jack's idea. The whole purpose of this is to make our pool area more accessible. And, maybe I'm looking at it differently, but I look at as Terry's Tiki Bar Light.
That's a good name.
Okay, let's go to Lindia. I'm going to recommend we move this topic. Well, we have item number 9 to deal with, and I would recommend that we pick up this discussion in the EC so that we don't lose it, but we develop the idea and concept toward what Jack and Terry are talking about. If you agree with that, we'll put it on the agenda for the EC. So let's go first to Lindia and then to Chap.
Okay, so I was just going to add that even if we do add those hours at night, like they're talking, Nicola's talking about mix and mingles a couple times a week, that would only extend the bar probably, the hours, probably, I'm just guessing, but maybe like to 7, 5 to 7. We don't have any idea about that. So that still wouldn't leave it open for people to use in the evening, really, after dark. It gets dark at 7 right now, I think. 7:15 maybe.
That
So
wasn't the concept, Lindy.
I know that, but that's why we really need to tear that apart at EC. Don't you think?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's do it.
Chap?
Yeah, this is just the a money issue. I believe at the last meeting, we approved $18,000 for these roll downs, correct, Mark?
Correct.
And at the time, I think we were just looking at 2 sides, not 3, correct?
Correct.
So now we're going with 3, the number's gone up to 25,000, correct?
Going up to eight shades.
But I'm just talking about the money. It's going up to
That's correct.
25,000.
Correct.
So I move we authorize an additional $7,000 for the installation of
Shade
screens.
Shade panels.
structures. Shade structures.
Roll
Well, they're
down
panels.
shades.
They're not structures.
Yeah, roll down shades. Yeah, that's
Roll
good.
down shades.
That's good.
Well, you got the gist of my move, which is
Cezanne's the wordsmith.
we need $7,000 more.
Okay, there's a motion on the table. I need a second.
Second.
Jack seconds. Any further discussion? Lindia?
Yeah, I just want to make sure, maybe Mark could just make sure that whatever we order isn't so dark that it makes it very dark in there when we do have to put it down. I just want to make sure they order the right.
Well, it's a tricky business
Shades,
because
we're
it
putting
needs to be
shades shut.
effective too.
I know that, but there's a real difference in those. The thing that Mark was holding up has lots of shades there. Mark, have you ever seen it?
I can only tell you that they have white, but.
No,
white-
we don't want white, but
we
I'm
don't
just
want
thinking,
white, and all the rest are shades because that's what they're for. Well, this is designed to be a shade. These are for the sun coming in and also to handle it. That's why it's got lights underneath it. The whole place
Right.
is lit up underneath it. So it's
So you're
not-
blocking the sun, Lindy. I don't know.
no, I know we're blocking the sun on one side, but when he's talking about putting it in for wind and things, that's not necessarily for the sun. I just want to make sure it's not too dark. That's all.
You can't, you've got these right here. Look, you can see through that. See that? You
Yeah,
can see me through it. It's not
That's
a
the
dark
color?
piece. Look, see how it's light?
yeah. Now show me the dark one.
And keep in mind, they can be rolled down partially. They don't have to be rolled down all the way.
This is light,
Okay.
dark. See the differences?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you can see through all of them. You know, they're all
Okay.
available. They're
Mhm.
see-through. You you guys
Landing.
want your cake and eat it too, I understand, but it's you know, these are remote control. You can drop them halfway. You can
Yep.
drop them all the way.
Yep.
You can do two or three to block the wind in one area. You don't have to turn it into a cabin. And
Good.
nobody that's going to want to be down there when it's 43 degrees anyway. So
Yeah. Okay.
Lanning?
Is it possible that a preferred situation would be to have white on the east side and the gray on the south and the north side? I mean, the south and the west sides?
I can tell you, I don't want white out there because all it's gonna do is be difficult to keep clean
Gonna get
Okay.
dirty.
and honestly, it'll look funny if some are up and down and they all got colors. I think you guys just need to go with this nice fabric. It's a beautiful, nice. It's not that dark.
Okay,
You can
if
still
there's
see
no
through it.
further discussion, let's vote on this. All in favor of this motion, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
Hey, Brownie, are you there? Because you look frozen.
I'm having trouble with the voice. I logged back in, so I didn't hear the motion. So
We can hardly hear you.
Okay, Brownie,
What's happening is everybody's audio is very scratchy. Does anyone else have that problem?
no,
Just your-
only you are coming
I
in
went
very
out and came
scratchy.
back in.
You're-
Brownie, listen to me.
What's the motion?
The motion is to approve the shade
What?
structure, the roll down shades at the shade structure
The pool.
at the pool.
They had $7,000.
I don't know, for some reason it's not,
All right.
something's wrong with my Zoom because, oh, there we go. See how it's delaying?
Log on again.
All right, no one else talk except Brownie so we can get his decision on this, then we'll try to fix it. So Brownie, what's
I
your,
put my hand up about 10 times.
okay, so you approve.
There he is.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Mark, can you fix Brownie's reception?
No, because it's all
No,
on
I
his
didn't
end.
dissent. I didn't dissent, but what you have to understand, something's wrong with my Zoom. Everything's delayed and the sound is terrible. I vote for it, now know what it's for, okay?
Okay, do you want to
Okay.
call in, Brownie?
I don't know if he
I'll go
can.
ahead, I can hear, just be aware that I've got a
Why
lag.
don't you drop,
Okay,
Brownie, drop your video, maybe that'll help.
Paul, I
Drop
have a
your-
question.
go ahead, Lanny.
Thank you. Mark, can you ask if they have constructed something similar at any other facility that we could take a look at before the final decision's made on that color so that maybe Lindy and I can see the light situation?
I'll ask him, of course.
Okay, thank you.
Remember, guys, the main reason for these roll downs is protection against wind and rain, correct?
No,
And sun, and the
Sun.
sun.
sun mainly.
Oh. Huh. Never mind.
Yeah, and I will tell you, the only reason I even brought it up is because I have been to a lot of lanais. I've seen a lot of lanais, and people have different screening on their lanais depending on people that have skin conditions or like with me with lupus. Some of them are very dark, even though you can see through them. There's the little squares. I just think if we could just see one, it would help. That's all.
Okay, can we move along? Mark, let's continue. We've just knocked off item 9 on the agenda, so we don't need to deal with that one. So Mark, carry on with your report, please.
All right, the condo northwest line, as you remember, and John Rosalia and other residents of the northwest corner condo group had asked that changes be made to the border line up there and removal of the existing vinyl X fencing and replaced with either a wall or some other security format. We've reached out to John. We've tried to do some communication there. John has agreed that he would be agreeable to a compromise of having the black picket fence, which would mirror the entrance fencing that comes up both sides of the entrance and exit way at the front entrance, and that would continue all the way down to the north border line, tie in to the chain link fence that is along the border at the north side, and go south to the chain link fence that is on the south side by the church. I had received a couple of quotes. Of course, the wall, the 8-foot high wall for both sides is, after looking at it, it's somewhere around $500,000. I received a quote from one of our other vendors, Classified Access, which does fencing. He's well known, and he does a lot of work in here. Both sides, for north and south, would be $37,000. So that's a far cry from that. It would also mirror the existing fence line that's currently coming down the entranceways. So that might be a good step in the right direction. We would also fill in any open areas that are on the north side with plantings to create more of a vegetative barrier from the outside to discourage people from trying to climb the fence. And that's where that sits today.
It's a 5-footer, correct?
Yep. Yeah, 6 foot, because the columns aren't that tall. The columns would be here. If you had 6 foot in a lot of areas, a 6 foot here would be here, but there would be a large gap on the bottom. The 5 foot, we could get in there and make sure that it was level across the top and there wouldn't be the gaps at the bottom. But the 6 foot, because of the landscaping being like this, you'd have to try to figure out how to do it. And there's certain areas where all of a sudden the fence would be above the columns and then below, and it'd look a little odd. So, but the 5 foot would be able to fit in there completely.
Is the 6 foot more expensive?
Excuse me?
Is the 6 foot fence more expensive, or are they the same price?
No, it's more expensive. I think it's about $4,000 more.
And the fence that along the entryway, is that a 5 foot fence?
Yes,
So it would mirror what we have there now.
correct.
Okay,
It's also the size of the fence that's around the pool.
right.
Right.
So it comes up to right about here, on me.
Okay.
Right.
Now.
We don't have to make that decision today. So that's something that I'm just putting out there. I would like, because this is a public forum and that it is being streamed on YouTube and that there hopefully is some of the community watching, and some of those are over in the condominium area, that we might get some feedback from this meeting from them. And then possibly we could make a decision and move. I can tell you that talking to both suppliers, that the lead time is somewhere around 10 weeks to 12 weeks on materials for this fence. Of course, the wall, if it was deemed possible at that price, would probably take 2 years before we would see anything because of the permitting that we would have to go through with the county and the state, along with complete demolition of that entire side, all columns, all landscaping. Most of the oak trees would have to go, they'd be bulldozed down. And unfortunately, at that point in time, that whole area would be wide open to 41. And it would take some time to get that all put back together. So that's a consideration as well.
Terry.
Yeah, I got a question. First of all, we're actually looking at this. We're no longer talking about a sound barrier. We're now talking about security. And my question to Mark is, seeing that he's the one that probably hears the complaints as well as some of our board members, what type of security issue is this going to solve? How much of a problem do we have at this particular time?
I can only tell you that currently you've got vinyl crisscross out there. It just looks like this between the columns. So there isn't any, if you want to call it, barrier to any great degree. So all it takes is a footstep onto the cross and then you could go over it. Now, we have heard that people have done that. Anecdotally, we've had people say that they've asked for this for a long time because people had been entering the community that way. However, the 5-foot-high picket fence behind vegetative barrier would make it difficult to jump over when you could just walk around the front entrance and walk right into the community through the guard entrance, which we have people do every day, all day. Bicycles, people.
But we
walk,
have cameras
running.
there.
So, I can only say that it vastly improved the look and feel of that area and to the south, and get rid of the faded, old, cracked vinyl crossbars that have been there since 1996.
So you would,
I think
you would
it's a-
remove, wait a second, I just want to continue a second, if you don't mind, Jack. So what you're saying is that if we put up this black security fence, you would remove the white vinyl?
The white vinyl, yes, the white vinyl is part of the proposal, is to demolish and take away the white vinyl cross beams and put the fence in between the two columns, anchored to the columns, yes.
Well, that's a little different. That makes a little more sense, because as you know, the white vinyl has been there since we built the place. So it does have a little bit of a gap in tooth situation. And therefore, I'm a little more affirmative about it than simply saying we need to have it for the security when we don't even know if anybody's really coming through the fence.
Well, it depends on the people in that area claim they are and they live there, and without getting into a debate about that, we have to make some assumptions along here of the way too. Let's go to Jack and then Chap.
I think it's a maintenance upgrade, it's a restoration, and it's an improvement in it makes all the fencing in the community consistent. So I think that's as good a reason as we need to talk about for why we should do this.
And we'll go to Chap and he'll tell us how we would pay for that. Then we'll go to Lanny.
Yeah, I want to suggest that as of this meeting, we just cease any further discussion about a concrete wall. It's just not going to happen.
Agreed.
So my question is, before I get to how we pay for it, is what more do we need to do to be able to comfortably make a motion to approve this?
I think we carry out the discussion here, and I'm sensing the way this is going, we may have a consensus on the issue rather than take it back to the EC. But let's,
then
go ahead.
I'll talk about how we pay for it. Let's round it up, call it $40,000. I think we're going to get about half of that out of reserves, correct, Mark?
Be my recommendation.
The remainder, we've got plenty of cash to do it. Whether it comes out of cash or long-term capital or capital is really just an internal accounting issue. It's not important now. We got more than enough cash to do this. So don't worry about how we're going to pay for it. I think it's just a matter now of whether or not we want to make a motion to approve it and get going.
Let's hear from Lanny first.
Primarily a question and clarification. I had understood that we were talking about only the north side of the property, so that it won't make all the fencing consistent. Is that correct?
No.
North and south.
North and south, the 40,000 will cover.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
And that will just go to the tennis courts. It doesn't affect anything farther south.
To the church.
Right, but like there's different there's chain link fencing, for example, at pond 5. And so you're not talking about changing that. Okay. So just for clarification, it's not making everything uniform, but near the end, the front entrance, it'll be uniform.
Well, Mark, how far south are we going? Wherever you have the crisscross plastic stuff.
All the way down to the borderline, all the way down to the borderline, and then where it ties into the existing chain link, which runs east and west. So this would only be north and south.
Right.
I'd say it's what, about 30, 40 yards on the south side? Not much more than that.
130 yards. Well, it's the length of a tennis court plus the parking lot.
Yep,
I'm talking about the south side.
yep.
Yeah,
Length of the tennis court plus the parking lot, so you're about 200 feet.
200 feet max.
All right, so 60, 70 yards, okay.
Okay. All right, and I'll entertain a motion at this point, unless Jack.
I thought the reason for not entertaining a motion at this meeting and waiting till the next one is to see if the community has any comments about their approach. If you don't want to do that, it's okay. I mean, but when we talked at the EC about this concept, we wanted to straighten it out so everybody understood what we planned to do, and then let anyone in the communities that seem to be affected by this give us some feedback. I'm not saying it'll change the decision, but it'll look like we haven't listened to what all they have to say.
That sounds like a good idea.
Well, I don't see that this is much different than any other decision we make along the way. We don't go back to the community every time we have an issue. I'm not sure what we would be asking them.
Okay, I've got my hand up when I get a chance.
Brownie, are you back with us now?
Yeah, that's what, could I speak a minute? Okay.
Okay, Brownie, go ahead then. Then we'll go
I
to
don't know
India.
what's, for some reason, I've got two computers. My regular computer, I got the signal that it was jumping around like you see. It's fine on this computer. But anyway, if we're talking about the fence along 41, is that the subject?
Yes.
Okay. I will be very strongly against it for the reasons I said before. I don't see that it's been a problem. It's been here 20 years. I don't have any reports of people using that to break in and do things. It's a lot of money. It's going to maybe even disrupt the way it looks. I will be against it, will vote against it, okay? And I would be for Jack, at least let us kind of simmer on it for a while. But I just don't see the reason for it, okay? Because
That's
somebody
not what
had,
I was talking about, Brownie, so.
okay, okay. I
Completely
did,
misconstrued my remarks.
well, that's because I just got in, Jack, and I didn't hear I just heard the last part of your remark.
Well, let me try it again, okay? I thought we had consensus that this was a good idea to modernize the gate appearance across the front of the entrance to mitigate against people who want to try to get across the barrier in secrecy. And it's a long-term maintenance replacement and modernization. So those are the reasons that I think it makes sense. You can disagree. That's what I think.
And
I thought you were saying to put the vote off for a month, though, is what I said.
Well, but only because this condos community along the fence in the property suggested that we needed to do something. So far as I know, Mark, you haven't heard back from anybody about what.
I can only tell you that I reached out to John, who was the first, who was the person that really wanted to have something done, and then of course he rallied his troops, and they did come back with you want to call it a petition, and there was I guess interest in that situation. I reached back out to John and said, would you like to rally the troops and get them together? We would like to get with you and have a meeting face to face. What I got back was from him was obviously the wall would offer the best security and buffer. However, I am personally willing to compromise if the plantings were shored up. In other words, having layers of plants on the US 41 line, plants that are thick and holes that currently are fixed. I like the fact that the fence would be done quickly and with less hassles and cost. Also said that he would like to, send out a vote to the entire condos with a 2 option, which the EC discussed, and I don't think that that's a possibility or a viable alternative.
Well, I think that we should let everyone know that during the EC meeting, we never considered paying for a wall. If they insisted on a wall, we'd want the condo owners to pay for the wall, I think. So if that's where he is, that he's pretty much satisfied with updating that north exposure barrier, then I think we should vote on it then.
I do too. And let's keep in mind, he's the president of 5 buildings over there too. So whether we believe what's going on there or not, I think we have to trust that these people are honest. I know in the past, I've received a number of complaints about theft in that particular area. There have been many complaints over the years. I've heard them. I know Mark has heard them also. So aside from all that, it's going to offer some security. And beyond that, it's going to be an aesthetic improvement for the entire community. So I think everyone wins by this. What we did before is we threw all kinds of plantings up in that area. Now it looks like a jungle in front of that area and not all that inviting. This, to me, is an opportunity to fix all of that. I promised to go to John Mihok and then Lindia and then Terry.
Yeah, I'm not totally in tune with what the background on this is, but if it's because people are coming across there and getting in when they shouldn't be, why don't we just put up some cameras instead of going through a $40,000
How many
expenditure?
cameras would you need to secure 3,000 yards of fence? Where would you put the
I'm
camera?
sorry, I didn't hear you, Jack.
I mean, can you tell me how many cameras you would need to have a secure fenced area? And it would be less than
Can I tell you? No.
$1,000? Well,
I can't tell you.
well,
They
I'll
all
tell you
have
it's more than
cameras on
$40,000.
No.
They've got cameras on their buildings. It's a fact that it's my personal opinion, that it's a highly transient rental area. So a lot of the, if you want to call it incidental, people getting into cars, bicycles being missing and stuff like that might have something to do with the highly transient rental population that exists in that area. I think that the extension of the existing black picket fence that we put in around the entranceway and the pool, if it went out onto 41 and down those roads, would greatly enhance the look and feel of the community, probably provide some perceptual security. As I said, you can walk into this community from any direction, so I don't know whether or not you'd really
Wait and
want to
see.
take your time and jump over the fence if you had to, when you could walk in at just about any other corner. So I'm not sure if, that's the reason.
Let's go to Terry, then Chap.
Yeah, I agreed with Brownie in the beginning, but now that you're telling me, and I do remember, because I've been probably here longer than all of you, except for Lindia.
Thanks.
Well, I'm sorry, Lindia, but you were there when I came. That fence has never been changed. Nothing's happened to it, and it's not getting any younger. So when you're now talking about the aesthetics of things as opposed to security, and then you add in security as well, then I now become from a no to a yes, because I think when you put the black fence in there and remove the white one, it'll be much more pleasing to the eye. And it is the area that we have closest to the Route 41. And it's really, you know, we've been talking about making it aesthetically more pleasing now for 2 years. And this one here gives you a double whammy. So I am
Right.
fully in favor of it.
Right, I agree. Chap,
I totally agree with Terry. Seems to me that the
Me too.
major benefit of this is aesthetics. However, along the way, we will probably, but to some degree, enhance the security. So what we have now looks like crap.
Right.
So I think we should go ahead and do this.
okay, any further discussion?
I
Lindia?
want clarification.
Lynn, you want to go ahead, then we'll go to Browning.
Sure. So from a landscaping point of view, if you drive down along by the condos on the inside, there's a very thin strip of dirt. Not room enough to plant anything to hide that fence from all the people that have to look at it along there. Most of them belonging to the property group that John Rosalita heads. So that vinyl is very, very dated. There's no way to camouflage it from the inside. So that's what they look at every day. You cannot go to put in a wall. You'd have to tear up everything. You've got thousands and thousands of dollars in landscaping there, and it would be astronomical to do that. So we've got this nice black fence already that we've all been so happy with in the community around the pool and going down by the guard gate to the road. We could tie that all in. We could give them that sense of security that they're looking for, plus not look at that outdated white vinyl crisscross that people can go through, and tie it down across the tennis courts, which mean people couldn't slip in there onto the property, and we're done. And it doesn't seem like that much money to me if we've got the money to do it. So I'm in favor.
Okay, Browning?
Okay, clarification. Since I came in late and had trouble, had to switch computers, I'm looking at what's in the docket, and I thought y'all were talking about the 180,000. I never heard the black fence by the time I came in. So your motion is only going to be to put in the 45,000 black fence, not the 8-foot wall concrete. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Oh, then in that case, I wouldn't be against it at that thing. So I wanted to clarify, but you got to remember, I'm looking, there's nothing in there about the 45,000 the black fence. So I thought we were talking about the concrete 8-foot fence.
No, that's,
Somebody's got a
That-
phone on that's beeping.
Yeah, I hear that too. Okay, and Browning, half of that comes out of reserves also.
Yeah, but that's
40.
okay. That's just, I thought you were talking about the 8-foot high and having to tear
No.
all
Okay.
the stuff out. Okay.
So do we have a motion?
I'll
don't
make a
think so.
motion.
Okay, Lindia moves.
Second.
Terry seconds. Unless there's further discussion, all in favor of the motion, raise your hand and say aye.
What's the
Well,
motion?
the
yeah,
motion
what's the motion?
What is
Someone
it?
needs to clarify the motion to make sure
Yeah,
it's written right.
I'll make a motion that we purchase with an expense of no more than $40,000 to line 41 with the black picket fence. Word that better for me.
How about we install?
I gotcha. I have to install a black 5-foot fence
in the
throughout the
north rear
columns
of the
along US
facility.
41 fence line to be paid by reserves and capital accounts not to exceed 40,000.
Thank you, Suzanne.
You're welcome.
Second,
Chap seconds it. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 hey,
Okay, we have a unanimous vote.
So, Brownie, I'd just like to comment, and I'm very disappointed that you think I would even approach the idea of putting a $180,000 barrier wall along the north side of the property. I'm disappointed that you think that little of me, that to even that
It has nothing to do with you, Jack. I didn't hear what the motion was and what you were talking about, and what's in the docket is that there was nothing I knew that ever got changed to the 45 in your discussion. It had nothing to do with you personally, okay? Just look
Not
at all I
45.
could see.
Brownie, I think you have a phone on like off the hook next to you.
No, don't.
There,
You
No,
do?
don't.
here we go. Okay, very good. Thank you all. We can move on now.
I've only got,
We're back to Mark.
this is a short,
He takes so
Manager's
long for
report.
these reports. I don't know what's going on.
I'm gonna go down to
overdoing
2
it.
lines next month. And they're not gonna be any discussionary items on them. All right, strategic planning, just for everybody, I sent you something, just to let you know that Dr. Jerry Schoenfeld will be here on December 16th at 9 a.m. to present the strategic plan as it was determined. And he's going to do this for anyone who would like to attend. We have first come, first serve until we can get to some capacity here at social distancing within the clubhouse. If that works out, the rest of everybody else can be on Zoom. And we'll see how that goes. The board meeting is scheduled to follow up behind that day. I think we talked about 11 o'clock. Brownie,
December
you
9th.
would have to, I think you'd have to make sure that you're okay with that time. That'd be Wednesday, December 16th. That's in front of the holidays. And that's when we felt it best before everybody, if anybody left or was coming or going or whatever, that we could have a board meeting. So I will leave it at that. Next, pickleball court number 3.
Before we go there, Mark, I just want to comment about the strategic plan, and I want to ask all of you who are liaisons to committees to kind of reflect your monthly reports in line with the strategic plan, just to keep that in the front of our minds as we move along through the course of the year, because this document should be something living and vibrant and something we're adhering to. So your reference to the strategic plan through your reports would be much appreciated. So Mark, back to you.
Pickleball court in the EC meeting, we discussed that part of the strategic plan, and also because of the county SDP approval for the pickleball and the bocce courts came through, that and I went to Welch. It's in my packet. I think you have it in your packet as well, that they've given us a quote for, I think, $38,000 up some odd for the installation of the 3rd pickleball court that would go in the parking lot area next to the other 2, only facing east and west instead of north and south. I have contacted Ritzman. I have not been able to get anything back from Ritzman on a quote for the pickleballs. I have contacted other communities that have used both Welch and Ritzman. The consensus is go with Welch. They really do a good job. Ritzman does a fine job on some tennis courts, or they do a job where if you have an existing tennis court and you want it, and it's hard to turn it into a pickleball court, they're fine. But from a construction standpoint, from A to B with the paving involved, they are not the vendor of choice.
Who did the current 2 pickleball courts, Mark?
Excuse me?
Who did the ones that are in place now?
That was a C&M paving that had done some work for Pelican Sound. Since then, we have not been able to get hold of C&M. I think they're doing more small paving jobs. It is a small company. And honestly, we see in those pickleball courts that are currently there that a lot of the grading issues weren't really taken care of and the quality of the pavement around the edges is suspect, and that's why we had all those cracks. Alan's been out there for the past week trying to fix those. I think.
Yeah,
that,
I'm aware of that. That's why I didn't want to use that vendor again. That's
right. Okay. So anyways, that quote is there, and you folks can talk about that later on in the agenda. The last item on my report, it has to do with the boardwalk extension into the preserve. The EC met and talked about Jeff Nunner doing some work on that, and being the, I guess if we want it, the person we would go to manage that enterprise from a fact-finding mission. The EC felt that, why should we spend the money with Jeff Nunner if we don't really know whether or not the county, the state is going to allow us to do any work in there anyways. So I went back to Jeff and said, listen, can you just pare your proposal down to a feasibility study only, just for exploration, and go to the county, go to SwiftMud, go to the Army Corps of Engineers, and find out whether or not we actually have the ability to increase that boardwalk. He agreed and has sent me a proposal for $1,500. And that's kind of what we talked about at the EC, to do that feasibility study. So I'd recommend that if this is part of the strategic plan, that we probably spend that money and find out whether or not it's actually something that could happen in the future here at Sterling Oaks to extend that boardwalk into that preserve.
So it's $1,500. I can approve that on my authority unless the board has any problem with that. I think we should move ahead and see if we can even begin the project and have Jeff, who is our expert with county permitting, begin the process.
Fine.
Are you all okay with that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
That concludes my report.
very good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark.
I have a question.
That's all, folks.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Lanny.
Thank you. Mark, what's the status with Brightview? They're again 5 weeks behind in pruning. Are we going to get another discount from them? What's going on?
All right. I can tell you that this was also a discussion at the executive committee, and that it was their recommendation as well as mine to put Brightview on to probation status, and to tell them in no uncertain terms that they failed their duties to maintain this contract scheduling, their attention to detail, and that they've received complaints over time for not paying attention to, I guess, the customer from various residential, from a number of items. So I'm going to read you the following email from Billy Shell, who is the regional supervisor for Southwest Florida. And I can only tell you that I told him that I would bring this up at the board meeting, and that the board meeting is a public venue, and that his company, after this short period of time with Sterling Oaks, has not done the job that we've asked them to do with regards to certain aspects of their contract. They seem to have done a fine job of mowing, going, blowing. They seem to have taken care of fertilization, pest control, as far as I know. They've done the palm tree trimming. They did the mulching with a lot less hassle and problems than in the past. So there has been some bright spots there. We have gotten some great emails from customers saying they appreciate their response. We've had others that have said we have not received enough response and that we're very disappointed. So this is what I wrote. I told Billy all of this. This is what I'm going to read you his email. Mark, as we discussed yesterday, I have met with our management team to express the community's concerns. They both understand the importance of executing this plan within the next 3 weeks. I am confident that our management team will fulfill these obligations and request on a daily and fill these obligations and requests on a daily and weekly basis. However, if any of these action plans are not followed through if they haven't been followed through with, you and I will meet to go over the next step, which most likely will include the replacement of one or both of these individuals. As I have mentioned yesterday in our phone conversation, I know that there's a lot of great things and relationships the management team have within the Sterling Oaks community. However, my main objective on every property is to ensure you and the residents are getting what we advertised when we took over the property. So on a bullet point statement, an account manager will send you weekly updates on the schedule and update the calendar if needed. You will receive the next month's calendar at least a week prior to the month beginning. Production manager and account manager, that's Juan and Diego, will update the portal within 24 hours of the completion of each work order with detailed notes and pictures. The account manager will update the portal on a daily basis. The production manager will be on property every day, completing work orders, training and developing frontline associates, and ultimately verifying the quality of the day's work. QSA, which is quality service assessment, will be completed and sent to you from the account manager on a weekly basis. The account manager will request a weekly ride through the property with you if you're available. Proposals will be sent to you every Friday unless we're granted a longer extension for larger proposals. The production manager or site quality manager will complete a QI daily, which I think is a quality inspection, follow-up of the crew's work that day and look at the next day's workload. The site quality manager will drive the property and inspect the quality of the work every work day to ensure the quality is up to ours and your standards. As I mentioned yesterday, we have promoted one of our crew leaders to site quality manager. This position will drive the property and get his boots on the ground, checking all aspects of that day's services that were completed. And his name is Miguel Garcia. We will set up a meeting next Monday so that we can introduce him to you. He will perform his inspections on a gator, which is like a sort of a work cart, and check the front and back yards of every completed property. The main objective is to make sure nothing was missed, train and develop other frontline associates, check on the quality of the work performed, and proactively check for the next day's scheduled areas for safety hazards, obstacles, or special requests. He will take pictures of the work completed and complete a quality inspection form that will be sent to you and the management team daily. I will also be on the ground more often to make all of these items are being completed. In addition, we will have a 6-man crew on the property tomorrow to complete bed, weed control, and also trimming. This will put us ahead of schedule. Therefore, we should not fall behind from this point forward. Diego will also be completing the pool area pots tomorrow. Lastly, this is important. If the board requests some type of credit for any services that they feel were not rendered this year, you and I will meet to discuss. Obviously, we all value the partnership and do not want anything to interfere with the relationship. Thank you, Billy Shell.
Okay, so at the EC meeting, we discussed these issues, and I suggested to Mark that we put Brightview on probation. So I'm very pleased to hear this letter. I think they're being responsive here. There are 3 of us on this board that it essentially does not affect, the condos and coach home. So the 6 of you out there need to be our eyes and ears out there. And I would like your reaction to this letter at this point and our suggestion to put them on probation. Let's start with Lanny and then we'll go to Terry.
I think that probation is definitely appropriate. I think that we should again ask for to be refunded the amount that's generally charged for a set of pruning. They missed another entire 5-week series, so we shouldn't be paying for it.
Okay, Terry?
Yeah, I agree with Lanny, but I do disagree as far as probation is concerned. I think you want to wait to pull that trigger, and I'll tell you why. What you have here listed by this guy is an action plan, and an action plan in all that I'm familiar with is equivalent to being on probation. So it gives us one more bite of the apple. And if he does what he says he's going to do in this action plan, we're not going to need to go any further.
Right, I guess that's what I'm suggesting also, Terry. I don't mean to contradict that concept. Michael Hargraves, then Lanning.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with Terry about the probation thing, but they did our second trimming last week, and I felt that the workmanship was much better. They were much more attentive. They were up and down the street talking to people who were out in the residents and getting feedback from them. So I thought this time around it went much better.
Good. Lanning?
Well, 2 clarifications. First, Michael, was your second one also 5 week, 10 weeks since the last one rather than 5?
I'm not sure of the dates.
Okay. We were 10 weeks behind once, and then we were 10 weeks behind again after they promised they wouldn't be behind. My other question is, I thought that probation meant that we got this plan from them. What is probation other than what's already happened?
Well, let me clarify that. In the EC, we got a lot of feedback from homeowners. And at that level, we said, look, we've heard enough of this. Mark, you've got to talk to this guy. Let's conceptually put them on probation. Let's get their thoughts about this. This is nothing formal. This was an EC discussion that we weren't happy with them, and let's find out if we can set up a resolution of some sort. So it's not a formal status, but I think it achieved our purpose, and I'm very pleased with the letter we got back from them. At least they're being responsive, and I think that was our goal.
My concern is they were responsive 10 weeks ago also. Not as much detail in the letter, but they again promised 10 weeks ago that this wasn't going to happen again, and it did.
I think it's obvious at this stage that if this continues, they're dead in the water.
Okay,
so
but I do think we ought to have it hit their pocketbook, not just get
right.
some more promises.
I don't think there's any problem with that. I think you made good points, and I think Mark will take that up with them. Let's go to Brownie and then Lindia.
Okay. Since all of this came up, I have seen an improvement in the number of people I see and when I see them, and they did do the trimming recently. And I would be against calling it probation, but one question mark, don't we have the right to drop the contract at any time with what notice?
30 days.
How much?
30 days.
So we really don't need probation in a sense. We have the, why make it worse? Just, they already know that they're kind of on probation, but I don't think we ought to call it probation because we can always drop it in 30 days anyway if we wanted to. The other thing, I agree with Lanny, even if it's not much money, in principle, we should get whatever it costs for at least 1 trimming or 2 trimmings for the year, even if it's not a lot of money, just in principle. Since they offered it and they clearly know they didn't do it, I think we should do that. So I agree with Lanny on that. Okay. What kind of money would that be? Mark, do you know? Say for 1 trimming? Okay.
What did they give us last time? Wasn't it like 12,000 or something?
I think that they just said that they do the leaf cleanup on us, but they didn't.
Right.
I don't know if they really went for.
Well, let's not get into the weeds on how much Mark can figure all that out. Lindia,
Yes, and if you're gonna get into that kind of stuff like tit for tat here, why can't they just give us some additional services? You know, make it all work related, where we would get some additional benefits in our landscaping. Rather than,
I think that's
Kind-
something. I can only tell you that being proactive, as I always am with the vendors, that I do keep the other vendors close by. You know, the landscaping business is a cutthroat business, and they are all within a hair's breadth of each other as far as quality and consistency. So I have met with other management, other account representatives from other major firms that are interested in getting our account, and I've told them to keep close by. I can also say that Paul and Lindia and Jack, that it's my understanding that Brightview did pick up Eagle Cove 1, and now they are picking up one of the Sweetwater Bays. So we will find out whether or not they perform their duties satisfactorily for you folks pretty soon.
okay, any other discussion? Okay, let's move now to treasurer's report.
All right, well, last night I got the numbers through October. I'll give you the highlights in a minute. I'm very comfortable in telling you that we don't have any problems right now. In fact, it's almost, when you hear these numbers, it's almost beyond imagination that we're in as good a shape as we are, given what we've been going through since February or March. So I can't offer enough thanks to Mark and Cezanne and Alan and Nicole for managing our expenses. And to the extent that our residents are listening, thank you very much for continuing to stay current on your bills. Our collections are remarkably low at this point. So let me give you some of the numbers. This is through October. We have $522,000 in operating cash. That's operating cash. That's a nice position to be in. We have $284,000 in the long-term capital fund. By the end of the year, it'll be a little over $300,000. The renovation loan, we continue to pay it down every month. The current balance, or the balance through October, is $239,000. So we should have that completely paid back in 10 months. We pay it down every month, about $23,000 a month. In terms of what I call the enterprise, this is amazing. Year to date, the enterprise has a loss of $600, which is $16,000 better than budget. So feel pretty good about that. That's why I say it's unimaginable that we're this close, but we are. The tennis year-to-date profit is $26,000, $16,000 better than budget. What I continue to call food and beverage, but it should be what? Food, beverage, and activities, I guess. It's a loss of $132,000. That's $25,000 worse than budget, but an improvement of $5,000 versus what it was last month. So there's really no surprise there. That is the end of this part of my report, unless there's questions. Mark?
It's just a comment that I just want to remind you that in May, that variance of the food and beverage operation was $38,000 worse than budget. She's pared it down to 24,000. So, and we have actually been doing some business. Although our revenues are down, she's done a marvelous job of keeping the expenses down on the other side. So, kudos to that, to pare down that variance and keep us closer. We know that we're not going to make the budget number, but at least it's not going to be as wild and off target as once thought. So we look forward to just maintaining the integrity of that operation. But all in all, I think all the crew, as my staff, have done a great job of trying to really manage the situation that is at hand and make the best of it. And everybody seems to be doing a great job with that. So it's kudos to the staff, and thank you for the support of the board as well.
Well, here, and please mirror our appreciation to Nicole and the crew and to you. And I think the activity the other night was reflective of what's going on. I heard many positive comments in terms of the safety of the area and the formula in terms of social distancing and masks and how the whole thing was delivered and how it came off. So kudos to everyone. And I'm particularly excited these days to hear the treasurer's report. The last dozen or so have been great. I never thought I'd get excited about a treasurer's report. So,
Okay, unless there's any other questions, move on to, so we can start a discussion so we can have a discussion. Cezanne, help me word a motion for approving next year's budget and assessment. What's the proper way to word that?
I just have it written, a motion to approve the proposed budget and assessments for 2021.
All right, I move that we approve the proposed budget and assessments for 2021.
Second.
Terry seconds. Any discussion? Lanny?
With this additional update of the budget information, it seems to me that we have, again, additional data showing that the $174,000 deficit for, or subsidy for food and beverage appears to be much more than is likely to be needed. I again recommend that we consider reducing that so that our homeowners are not paying for funds we don't need. At this point, it looks like the deficit this year is going to be in the range of 120,000. So planning for 173 when we have another year of COVID to be looking forward to appears excessive to me.
Jack?
Year to date, Lanny, we've lost 132,000.
Right, and at this point, we're saving about 5,000 in contrast to budget every month. So if we throw in November and December, my guess is, because of the appropriate reduction in cost along with revenue, is that we're going to be looking at 120,000 by the end of the year.
I don't think so.
No.
We've been doing 5,000 every month.
Well, it's $5,000 better than budget.
Right. But it's been an improvement each month of 5,000. So, I mean, and even if we don't do the 5,000, 130 is still quite different than 174.
Jack McBurney?
This is a budget we've had it to look at for 3 months, probably more or less. Everyone has had a chance to comment on it. Just because a monthly figure changes doesn't mean that the 12-month projection should be. So we're going to change the budget every week. We have a change in a projection. It's a 12-month budget for a year we have know nothing about. And If we're right on this budget, it'll be a miracle anyway.
Okay,
This is not a new recommendation. I'm just pointing out that there's even more information. I made this recommendation every single month. So it's not that I'm just looking at 1 month. I'm just saying that each month we get more information, and each month it looks like that we have an excessive subsidy in this budget, in my opinion, and in the opinion of some of my homeowners.
Terry?
Yeah, well, like I said, Lanny's made this recommendation every single month for the last 4 months that I know of. However, she hasn't taken into any consideration for any of the 200 other line items that we have in the budget, which has also changed over the course of time. So I think that she's being short-sighted. And although it'd be nice to add another % or two off of the budget to the homeowner, I think that it's prudent that we don't do so.
Any other discussion? Browning?
Well, I'll vote for the budget, but I will back up Lanny. And again, I'm not Jack at last minute to change. Personally, I think with our cash position overall, the report that Chap gave, I would be basically for a budget. And I don't care about where the details will work out, would be no increase in the homeowner's assessment. I think with our cash position, we'd be very safe to do that without, don't want to argue about whether or not it's this item or that item or the 200 items, but looking at it overall, I have trouble with the principle when we've increased our cash position, everything looks good, everything going, and yet we're increasing, getting additional funds from the homeowners, which we probably in all seriously know that we won't need next year in principle. I won't go against it now, but I just want to say I do back up what Lanny said, and I would like to see a budget with no increase, and I think we could afford that.
Okay, we'll go to Chap, Lindia, then Lanny.
I hate to talk about 2022, but to just respond to Browning, if we get the PPP loan forgiven, we're going to be very much interested in using cash next year to keep the assessments down. Right now, we can't count on that $200,000 that we got from PPP loan. That's one of the reasons why our cash is so strong. We can't count on that cash until it's forgiven. The next year we might be, I hate to say swimming in cash, but my vocabulary isn't extensive enough to come up with another word. If we're this flush next year when we're putting the budget together with cash, then we can seriously begin looking at keeping assessments down by using cash. But right now we can't.
Lindia.
Because it hasn't been forgiven.
Yes, I like going with the way the budget is right now. You're allowing for extenuating circumstances. We don't know what's going to happen. We've seen what happens when people don't budget enough. And then the next year, the homeowners get hit with a big increase and then they're mad. So we're totally talking of 30, 40,000 here. We don't know what's going to happen. Why not protect ourselves, have it in? If that money for the loan doesn't have to be repaid, then look at possibly doing something. I'm not big in favor of doing that because it always seems to come back and bite you.
Lanny.
Terry, I just want to qualify, I would want to clarify, this is not the only budget item that I've looked at. I've actually looked at the budget very extensively. It's the most egregious example of where we are funding a program well above what we needed to use it this year. I'm getting significant pressure from homeowners in my community to reduce the budget increase. And I would feel like I'm not representing them if I didn't propose this. if the others don't support it, then I can't do anything about it. But but homeowners that in my areas have asked me to do this.
Okay, chat.
I'm curious to find out if anyone else has heard anything from their constituents regarding this budget.
I
can
have
speak-
not.
I can speak for Manatee Bay and Tavernier. I haven't heard boo.
I have not heard a word.
I've not heard a word.
I have
Okay.
not heard a word.
Nor have I.
Nor have I.
Okay, let's vote. We had, Cezanne, we have a motion and a second. Okay, all in favor of this budget, please signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
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 It passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Let's now go to committee reports. We'll start with activities.
Okay, the Activities Committee met Thursday at 10 o'clock. Girls' Night Out events have been tabled until January when the clubhouse will be open with guidelines. January 13th is chair yoga with a snack. February 10th, Mahjong tournament with a maximum of 40 people. March 10th, quarter auction with funds to go to the Legacy Fund. More details later. April 7th, sunset at the beach, potluck of sorts. Probably everybody will be bringing their own food for themselves. Past events, November 17th was our annual welcome back event. The music by Soul System Duo. Picnic baskets were given to each one filled with barbecue chicken, nearly a half rack of rib, coleslaw, baked beans, and Tipsy Cow ice cream. Add a couple of bottled wines to socially distanced tables, and you have a nice welcoming event for all. Lynn Frankel reported that her meeting with Dustin Bly, Mark West, and Florida Gulf Coast University officials, it was decided that this was not a good year for any solicitation of goods or services from our local businesses. Instead, we will look to other methods, some from the past, such as tennis, bocce, pickleball tournaments with entry fees, and also a new event, which may be a major raffle with a major prize. More details later. Future events, door decorating contest, prizes. You will soon have a flyer with details, including time frames about and for the contest. Every owner has a door. Every door is invited to sign up for the contest. If you do not want to be in the contest, but just want to decorate your door, go for it. We're encouraging all to join in and make Sterling Oaks look festive for the holidays. New Year's Eve dinner with music. Larry Roberts will be providing the music. Hopefully we can be at the club with a 50% capacity, tables properly distanced, and all protocols in place. To just skip back a little bit, details on Thanksgiving dinner are that serving will be from 11:30 to 2:30, or you can eat at the pool area or curbside pickup, but no dining room. The dining room has been changed. There weren't enough people interested in eating in. Menu is a choice of full turkey or ham dinner with all the usual Thanksgiving sides plus dessert. Price is $21. Cabana will be open during this time for drinks. The Friday after Thanksgiving, the Cabana will be open with a limited menu and drinks. Saturday and Sunday following Thanksgiving will be open as usual with full menu and drinks. We are still working on a name for the new shade structure, or as I have started calling it, NSS. We will fight it out over the next month and announce the new name at the December board meeting.
I can't wait.
Where'd the NSS come from? What is that? Something?
New shade structure.
Oh, new shade. That's not very creative.
I know, but it's easier to say.
What about the SSNSS?
Yeah, there you go. But Nicole's going to try to do some mix and mingle events at the pool. She just will call them mix and mingles, and we're looking at trying to extend Cabana hours as some activity members have requested. with drinks and maybe a very, very limited menu. The cabana hours are on the website. Let's see, we would like to do this starting in January, having these mix and mingles. So mix and mingle, that's a new name. That's for activities at the pool. And the NSS will be named shortly. And that concludes my report.
Very good, and I would suggest to all of you that this reflects much that we placed in the strategic plan in terms of firing up attention at the patio and cabana area. So thank you for that, Linda. Let's go to Brownie, then Lanny.
Just one question. For Thanksgiving, what's the backup if it's raining? It probably won't be, but what's the backup?
Well, it's all curbside, so you pick up your meal. And if you haven't done that, that's a really nice thing to do. It's a great meal.
So
And
even if you eat at the pool, you're going to pick it up then, is what you?
absolutely.
Oh, okay.
But they'll have it organized down there so you can,
Yeah.
get tables and eat under the shade structure if you want to.
Lanny.
What is a mix and mingle?
It's
Otherwise known as a happy hour, but apparently that's a forbidden term in this community.
It's an event.
Okay, I would strongly encourage not to be using the term mingle during the pandemic. That's exactly what we don't want people doing. So I suggest you hold that name off till after the pandemic is past.
Yeah, let's call it something else.
Okay, well, tell Nicole to change the name. I'm not doing it. Okay.
How about mix and avoid?
Mix and slap.
Come together
Mix and
apart.
distance.
How about that?
Okay, any questions of Linda before we move on to architectural standards? Okay, Michael?
Okay, ASC completed the single-family home inspections with dirty roofs and driveways, of course, being the most frequent violation. We currently still have several roofs being replaced, and we have many roofs still in litigation. So the committee would like to update our policy on cleaning for those roofs in litigation. And you have the motion in your packet. And it's basically the difference between this motion is that we have made the date more specific for January 31st. So I will read the motion. Okay. The motion to approve the owners of roof violations who are in documented litigation on roof replacement be given an extension until January 31st, 2021 to clean the roof, replace the roof, or have a signed contract for roof replacement with documentation showing litigation has been approved and just pending the tile delivery or schedule date. To avoid possible further damage, chemical spray cleaning is acceptable if they have to clean the roof.
A second.
Okay, Brownie seconds that. Lanny?
Question, Michael, what do you mean by documentation showing litigation has been approved? What's the approved there?
Well, usually once
Who's
you get a letter from the insurance company that there's a go-ahead to sign on with the vendor who's going to replace the roof.
So it's not that litigation has been approved, that the roof replacement has been approved.
We're replacing it.
I think it's showing the litigation.
Litigation has been completed, maybe, and then
Or enacted?
enacted. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
a word. Enacted.
Okay, thanks. That makes more sense.
Terry, do you have a question?
No, I'm good.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I already
second.
seconded it. I already seconded.
Okay, yes. Brownie seconded the motion. If there's no further discussion, all in favor signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
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 Passes unanimously. Anything else, Michael?
Well, we'll be coming back to the committee probably in December with some changes in our standards and maintenance standards for driveways. the concrete driveway specifically, there are many, many, many out there now that have severe cracking and damage that that we need to be more specific in getting back to the homeowners on what the violation is and whether or not they need to be replaced and if they can be repaired. We did some of the condo inspections this week, and I was kind of appalled at the looks of the driveways in the condo areas where they have damaged the driveways doing the roof replacements, and then they have patched in sections of the driveways. We got some complaints from owners back in there while we were making our rounds too. The streets back there look very bad. There was cement all over the roads, and they have, when they replaced pieces of the driveway, they actually extended the driveway cement out into the road a little bit. So that's got to be something that's going to have to be dealt with.
Yes, I think that's a good point. I'm hearing a lot of concern about all of that also. So we'll look forward to your recommendations. Lindia.
I've been getting a lot of calls, just as Michael was saying, and what I have found to be the biggest problem is Elias Brothers. The ones that did the roofs, they cracked the people's driveways, and then it was an amateurish job. They were slapping on asphalt, they were slapping on concrete, and the joints didn't match or anything. Now, Elias Brothers has insurance, and the associations have got to hold their feet to the fire on coming back with certified personnel to do this work to meet Sterling Oak standards. So I've talked to numerous people and put them in touch with different people so that, especially over along by the mailboxes, those driveways right along there are terrible. So, but they're working on that. But I think if we could all, if you hear any complaints, make sure that you mention that they must get a hold of their president of their association and their property manager, because Sterling Oaks is not really supposed to go down and fix that. So a lot of times the people just don't know who to go to. So we're glad they spoke to you, Michael.
Okay, that's all I have for a report.
Michael, I know people would know if they got it, but what's the date for the reinspection? Just
we usually do them in January.
okay, but no definite, but just sometime in January.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Are we concluded, Michael?
Yes.
Let's go to tennis, Lanny Wheeler.
The tennis committee is chaired by Rick Sanders and met via email. As of November 4th, the tennis membership has decreased from 299 to 293. 36% of members are homeowners. This is our lowest number for members for November since 2015. Over the last 2 months, we've added a total of 19 promotional members. So far, we know of 12 members that have or will terminate due to COVID. Staff is attempting to determine if the December renewals, there are 11 of those, and the January renewals, there are 79 of those plan to rejoin. The special promotion continues through the end of the year. COVID management, due to the local increase in case numbers and case positivity, along with concerns from players, the tennis committee recommends the following additions to the COVID management plan. The tennis committee is committed to increasing preventive actions as needed in order to keep the courts open safely. I move that the board approves the following additions to the COVID management plan. Number 1, a mandatory addition. All players shall yield space under the shade structures so that all players can safely get to their water. Remember to stay 6 feet apart, even when wearing masks. Strongly recommended. Wear a mask when you are arriving at the tennis courts. Put one on when you leave your car or arrive at the tennis area. You may remove your mask when you start to play. Put on your mask when you finish playing. When scheduling multiple courts, assign players to their court before everyone arrives at the courts. Players should go directly to their courts and not congregate with others. Bring hooks so you can hang your bag on the fence. No more than 2 bags should be hung on each side of the small player shelters. The tennis, and so those are the recommendations. I'll just leave it at that. For those that are not familiar with the multiple court scheduling issue, sometimes as many as 4 courts will be scheduled by one court captain. So there's as many as 16 players mulling around, pulling a number or a card from a bag, and that is creating a problem. Do I have a second for this motion?
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, here's the discussion. Here's my 2 cents. The mandatory aspect, all players shall yield space under the shade structure so that all players can safely get to their water. Remember to stay 6 feet apart. I would recommend that that become a strongly recommended item rather than a mandatory item. For one thing, it sounds like no one could operate under the shade structure. Number one. Number two, how would you enforce that? I don't think the board wants to be in the police mode if we make that mandatory to enforce it. I don't see how that could be done, but I would move it to strongly recommended so that people can kind of police themselves. Jack, then Lanning.
So I have a question. Why does the board have to do this for the tennis committee, approve these recommendations? Is that not something that the tennis community can do themselves? I'm just curious.
We don't have a separate document for our different sports. We have one COVID management plan, and thus far the board has been approving any changes to it. So we're bringing it to the board the way we have for everything else. To answer Paul's question, there's no expectation for the board to police any of this. We do expect players to police each other. The primary reason for making access to water mandatory is that if there is a problem, then it's clear that if Paul Barris needs to investigate the situation, players who are unwilling to yield to players who are trying to get their water will be clearly the ones who did not behave in accordance to our guidelines.
Why don't you say that? Where does anyone have authority to do anything in these guidelines?
I agree.
We have the guidelines include the statement that if you don't comply with them, you are at risk of losing your privileges for amenities or your tennis membership. That's already in the document. This is just the addition to the document.
Well, can't you reference the document so you can get some more clarity on what these mean?
Well, this will be added to the big document, and it will be highlighted at the beginning of the document that these are the new changes. That's what we've done every month when we've made changes.
Michael.
What's the communication plan for this proposed change?
The communication, well, what's been done in the past is it goes out in the Friday FYI that there's been an update to the plan with a link directly to the plan. The tennis people will also directly email tennis players to advise them. And as I mentioned, at the beginning of the document now, we always highlight those things that have been changed since the last version so that it's easy for people to see what's new. Yeah.
So this change to have people wear a mask from their car to the tennis court is new.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's, at this point in time, the tennis committee is requesting that be added as strongly recommended. They are currently split fairly evenly as to whether that should be required. They want to discuss it more next month or later this month, or I guess actually next month. And I may be bringing that back as a requirement for next month. Many of them have experienced that at their clubs up north, that's been required and they feel much more comfortable with that procedure, but they couldn't agree quite yet. So I may be back with that next month.
Well, my observation is that is not happening now.
No, it has not been, it has not been communicated to anyone yet. A few people are doing it, but, you know, because of their own preference, but it will go into effect essentially tomorrow if the board approves this. But, you know, again, the only policing is that if someone's uncomfortable with someone else and they says, you know, look, our rules say, please put on your mask if that were to be required, then if they would refuse to do it, then that could be reported to, in the case of tennis, Paul Barris. But in most cases, people will just put on their mask and that'll be fine.
Terry.
Yeah. At this point, since we've decided that we needed the COVID protocols for tennis, has there been any enforcement done by Paul Barris to date?
There's been enforcement in terms of players who have been infected who have not been allowed to play. Absolutely, yes.
Well, that's not really the same. If you have COVID, obviously you can't be allowed on the court.
Okay, but that's one of the things in our plan.
Well, what I'm saying, what I'm really asking is, are there any mandatory things in the COVID policy for tennis at the moment that Paul Barris is responsible for to date? Or is this something new that we're bringing up at this moment?
Well, there have been things, you know, for example, when the water fountains were turned off, he was responsible, but they're now turned back on. So there's, I mean, I can pull up the entire plan. There's a number of things in it that players are responsible for.
No, you're missing a point, Lanny. Essentially, I think Paul and I are on the same page to a certain degree. When we make something mandatory, somebody has to be the policeman. Up to this point, nothing's been mandatory. Turning off the fountains, that's just an act that can be done. There's nobody responsible for turning them back on again because they can't be turned on by anybody else. But at this point here, you're bringing it up to a higher level of performance with Paul Barris in charge of monitoring this. And I know you did it in committee. Did Paul have anything involved in this committee at all? Was
yes.
he ever? And
yes,
what did
he was involved and he supported it. There are a number of other mandatory elements. I'm just trying to pull it up now so I can remind you of those.
Yeah, just give me one. That would be good.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Okay.
Visiting teams for tennis league play shall be limited to 2 players plus 2 spectators. That's mandatory. COVID posters must be posted. That's mandatory. Players will remind, no spitting on the courts. Essentially, when they come up is when players complain that another player is violating it and admit that they've done that, then Paul is able to say, you know, you can't do that. I don't know of any, I don't get reported all the warnings that he gives people, so I don't know, but he has not indicated that it's a problem for him to deal with complaints.
Well, you understand my question.
Right, yeah, I do.
Elevating him to a higher level of performance,
yeah. And he has,
gives me a bit of a
indicated no problems with it. It makes it clearer that when there's a he said, she said, if we have a clear standard, then it's easier for him to determine who misbehaved.
It's better if we have a they said, he said.
I want to hear from Brownie, Lindia, and again from Terry in terms of how strict we're going to get with these. And again, I'm going to suggest that we move these to recommendations rather than any mandatory item. Number one, four of us are involved with the tennis community, and I can just see the reaction to this as we begin to constrict this. I think I have no problem recommending these things, but as we talk about mandatory effects, that's a different story for me. So Brownie, I want to hear.
I agree with you, Paul. I think, as you know all along, that I think ultimately the most important thing is individual responsibility. 90% of the people do worry about it and try to do it. I don't think we should make it mandatory. I agree with Terry that if we make it mandatory, we really need to have an enforcement policy. And I don't think anyone wants to or really can enforce it. And, you know, let's be realistic. With the width of that, when you walk out to the tennis courts, they have a mask. You can't always stay 6 feet apart. There's two people talking there on the walk, and you got to walk around them and all of that. So, you know, everybody uses common sense and do the best and try to avoid. But many times we're not 6 feet apart with someone sitting there standing. You got to walk by them. You don't walk over in the grass and walk through the hedge. So I think just strongly recommended. Everybody will do the best they can. And one of the questions is, I guess to Mark, do we have any other reported COVID cases in Sterling Oaks or tennis players we know of? You're not on, Mark. You're muted. You're muted. You've got to unmute.
I said I'm not aware of any at this time.
Okay. So I mean, I look at this way. We're doing a pretty good job. Okay.
I'm aware of tennis players.
Yeah,
I'm aware of tennis players that have been infected. I'm surprised that Mark isn't.
But
I
not
only knew
currently.
of one. I only knew of one, but that was some time ago.
How many?
There was another one just 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Maybe
But
that
was
wasn't
it
communicated.
associated with tennis or somewhere else? Do you know? Do they know where they got it? Where you try, if you're the tracker, where did they get it?
In this case, it is known that he got it from an uncle. He didn't catch it here, but he was playing here when he was infectious. But
I don't think that's the case. I don't think he did.
That was identified very quickly, and he was not allowed to play anymore.
And I'm assuming that he personally didn't want to play anymore. I mean, this is what I'm talking. I don't think anyone wants to play if they have any idea they have it or been exposed.
That's correct. And my understanding is that
And that's my point. We don't need to regulate it.
he got
People-
tested before he played and then quarantined himself
Right.
before he got back on the court.
And that's my point is I think people regulate themselves the best they can. I don't think we have anyone that wants to expose anyone to it. So, I mean, recommending them is fine, but I don't think we should get into the business of regulating. I don't think anyone wants to volunteer for that.
Again, we're not, the committee at this point is not mandating masks, although many tennis programs do, and they may want to do that next month. There's strong support for that. But
Let me ask you this.
When they're playing?
No, only until you get on the court.
Oh, okay.
But that's not what's in this motion. The only significant mandatory statement is that players shall yield space under the shade structure so that all players can safely get to their water.
And how do you do that?
Yeah,
do you do that?
that's like no one will ever be under the shade structure.
No, in the past, the system was sort of first come, first serve. If players on your court finished or were at change of ends before the other court, you might sit down on the chairs, kind of occupy that area, and other people then don't have that space. They would just have to reach over you, etc. Currently, players don't want to have to get, right next to other players in order to get to their water. So all they're asking is that for when a second court changes ends, that the first court get up, give them space so that they can get to their water. Why
don't you bring a bottle of water?
Say again?
Why don't you just bring an extra bottle of water in case it's crowded?
Or why don't we
Let's go to Lindia, then Chat, then
Yeah.
Terry.
Yeah.
I got an idea how to resolve this.
Yeah, good.
Let's hear from Lindia, then Chat, then Terry.
So I think the recommendation, Lanny, is probably just as good as an order. Because if they don't do it, you're not going to kick them off the tennis. You're going to warn them and you're going to warn them again. What a recommendation will tell them what we all think they should do. And common sense will let them know to move out of the way if somebody's getting water. I mean, you can micromanage these things to a point where it becomes almost ridiculous, I think.
Well, Lindia, just to let you know, this isn't a hypothetical. It's to address a problem.
Well, I know that. I do know that.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I mean, in order to do it,
Okay.
Lanny, let me ask you this. Will Paul Barris wear a mask?
That's not required by anybody.
Isn't
we
this
were-
part of your strongly recommended?
He, not on the court. He would wear it if we recommend it. He would wear it from his car to the court like everybody else.
Mhm.
Okay. I guess. I mean, I haven't talked to him about it.
Well, if these recommendations come through, I would suspect that the pro would be a guiding light in terms.
I would ask. I will personally ask him to do that.
Okay. Let's go to Chat.
Got an idea. Why don't we forget about whether it's mandated or recommended and replace it with just a statement that along the lines of, and I'm not that familiar with tennis, but along the lines of you must yield space.
The
to
problem
allow-
with that, the problem with that, Chap, is the way the document's currently written, we have a section of mandatory precautions and a section of additional recommendations. The tennis committee wanted to add the one under mandatory and then add a new strongly recommended and then a set of additional. So it's just a matter of fitting it into the document as it currently exists to keep things logical.
Go to Brownie, then Terry.
Okay, I've got a suggestion. Instead of, if we really want to solve the problem, two things. I like your idea of hooks on the screen where you can hang it. There's always that. So rather than people bringing hooks themselves, which is kind of ridiculous, why doesn't the tennis buy 3 or 4 hooks to put along the screen so we'll have more places to hang? That's always been an issue. Very simple on solving that. The water problem, okay? First of all, if someone's really concerned about it, don't put your water on the table, put it down 6 or 7 feet down by the thing. Or we could also get some of those like you have in the shower, those shower caddies, put a couple on along the screens there where people can spread out their water and they don't have to go on the shade next to each. That's a much better solution than trying to regulate no one under the shade. And I agree with Paul. If people all put the water on that table, you're not going to avoid, in essence, and saying no one can be under the shade and you have to take turns, go and pick up the water bottle. A better solution is put the water bottle somewhere else. Put them on some caddies along the fence.
You don't think that would look too junky to have a bunch of that along the fence?
Well,
safer.
You know, in the interest of, we're doing a lot of things that are junky and stupid because of the virus. So it's no more extreme than the other things we're doing. To me, it's much better than some of the other things. And if we buy nice looking little caddies, I don't think it'll look junky at all. Okay.
I'll take that recommendation. I don't know what other
And after the
Junky
virus
looking
is
things.
over, we can throw them away, spend a couple
Yeah.
$100 and buy some hooks and some caddies.
I
Somebody,
don't know what other junky things you're talking about, though.
I didn't say junky. You know, you never seen the caddies where, you know, like you can do it and you could put 3 or 4 bottles in it,
Yes,
or even just one bottle, right? Okay.
right. Yeah,
They
I
make
know.
them.
I understand. You said that there were other things that we were doing that are stupid and junky. I just don't know what
I
you
don't
mean by
mean-
All
that.
right,
don't
let's,
mean- I
let's
don't
not
mean
get into
Sterling.
this.
I
Do
don't
we,
mean Sterling Oaks alone. I didn't
let's
mean,
go to Terry. Do you have anything to contribute?
I didn't mean.
I'm not sure. The way I've been listening to this, I don't know what to say.
Well, we're
Listen,
going to move
if
this
we get-
along. So,
Well, if we go back to we understand that COVID is expanding again. You know, the last thing that we did was we took away all the chairs and we put them back. And now we're getting back to the same level that we were prior to when we took the chairs away. Maybe we should just take the chairs away again.
A good idea.
okay. Any other discussion? Lanny?
Based on this discussion, I'd like to modify my motion and change it to that all the items that I talked about would be strongly recommended at this point in time. And I'll take these other things back to the tennis committee. So strike out mandatory and just create a new category of strongly recommended, and they all go under that.
Okay. Do we have a
Can I-
second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor of this motion signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Okay.
Did the dog vote?
Yes.
That's my dog.
Oh, he's
He
voted.
only gets a half a vote though.
Lanny, are we through with tennis?
Yes.
I have one
Okay.
thing. I
Okay,
have one
Browning.
thing with, I'd like a follow-up on the people that were eating on the tennis court and that haven't heard back any report on that. Mark,
Yes,
Paul?
we did look at that and
Well,
we
could we
pulled-
have a report on it, please?
I'm giving it to you right now.
Okay.
And Mark can fill in. My understanding is we took a look at it on those courts and we did not see the group that we thought was down there. It was what appeared to be maybe the kids that used that court in the afternoon may have brought some stuff in from the outside and thrown it in the garbage things. And we checked the cameras and there were just a few kids playing at that time. It was not a large group. Mark, do you have anything else?
No, that sums it up. We think it was just the junior program. I checked with Alan as well to find out how bad it was. He said that it's usually nothing going on. I don't really know why the kids, we've reminded Paul to talk to Pete, the instructor, to say that the kids shouldn't be bringing food onto the courts and that if they want to eat in the parking lot, that's fine too.
But did Paul specifically find out who was on the court and talk to that pro to make, see, this is a case, we have rules, we got to make sure the people know the rules.
It was
Did he
the
talk
junior,
to
it was the junior tennis program. And
Did he
he's
talk
talked
to the pro that was
Yep.
there and make sure he understood in the future?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes,
So
we did
this-
follow up on that.
So just to clarify, it sounds like it's possible that they're just using our trash cans, that
Yes.
they, and we don't have any rule against using our
Wait a
trash
minute,
cans.
Lanny, someone didn't eat off the site and then bring in their bags and put it in their trash can when they weren't in the bags. They were all separate. You telling me someone ate somewhere else and came in and broke their cash up and put it in their trash can? No, it was eaten on the courts.
How do you know this?
You're probably right. And we did talk to them and Paul's talked to the instructors. So we've told them that that's not appropriate and cease and desist.
Okay.
Brownie, I think that it's quite likely that the food was picked up after the kids were picked up at school. It was eaten in the car on the way to the courts. I don't see kids sitting around eating there. And-
Lanny, let me say it again. You're telling me the kids took it out of the car, came in, the stuff wasn't in the bags, it was separate. So they brought the bag in and they took it out of the bag and put it in the garbage separately. That's not logical, okay? It
All
was
right,
eaten
we're
on
going
the
to,
courts.
we're
We
going
saw
to
this
move
stuff.
along. We're going to move along, ladies and gentlemen. And let's move to item number 10. We've covered item 9 already. So let's move to 10 under new business pickleball court. Jack, are you introducing this one?
Yeah, did you write it for me, Suzanne, yet? I moved that.
Everything's in your packet.
Oh, geez, all right. There's 14 pages in this packet. Oh, look.
Work
Motion
hard
to
on these
approve.
packets, guys.
I move that we approve a motion to install the third pickleball court, not to exceed $50,000, to be paid from the long-term capital fund.
Okay, do I have a second?
Yeah, I
I'll second.
it.
Okay, Lindy, seconds. Any discussion?
What
Lanny?
did-
I'm wondering why we're talking about approving this purchase at this point in time, rather than going through the steps that we had determined in our strategic plan, which included the pickleball project team, monitoring the court usage, and coming up with and then also a reassessment of resident interest and support for additional courts when the strategic plan hasn't even been presented to the homeowners. I assume we won't be building this until next summer, so I don't know why we're voting on this now rather than after we've shared the strategic plan and gone through the steps that we've outlined.
Because number one, we began the discussion about this 3 years ago, well before the strategic plan had come into place. We've included the concept in the strategic plan by happenstance, but 3 years ago, we began the discussion. We had the SPD through the county approved over a year ago now, and we have all the engineering done, and it is already permitted. So this is something that isn't new by any manner. We've got a recent bid on the project that's much lower than the original one we had about a year ago. Now, we know in season that this gets very, very crowded, and we have this information, and we know that it's the case every season, and the third court was necessary, and we knew that, and we knew that 3 years ago. And finally, we know we're in very good shape in terms of our finances at this point. And finally, we know that the bocce people are suggesting that the third court is not necessary at this time. And that was also part of the SPD, and we got approval of that through the county. But at this time, it is not necessary and not on the docket for pickleball. So our recommendation now is to move on this issue because the time is right.
So it would be built soon or next summer?
I'll about a mark on that.
Not before
just-
next summer at the earliest.
Right,
I
seems like
think
it would be way too
everything-
disruptive.
You have to remember that even if we said yes today, they're 3 to 4 months behind anything anyways.
Okay.
We're way down in the queue. The sooner we get in the queue, the better off we are. I would say that they probably are not going to be able to start us until sometime late spring anyways.
Well, I don't think we want them to start it before late spring,
We
is
understand.
my point.
Okay, any other?
What
Brown?
what did the two original courts cost?
Mm,
Mark, what was the
Uh,
cost?
The two first original courts cost around 60,000. But then we added the fencing, added the other stuff, so it was all.
It's
totally-
about the same, really.
Yeah,
With the
yeah.
fencing and plus inflation.
Yes.
So we have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in
Yeah, one
favor?
last thing. There's one part of the discussion I want to make sure everybody heard. This is coming out of the long-term capital fund.
Okay. That's where it should.
Which is a good thing that we have.
Yeah, that's where it should come from.
I also think the motion should say consistent with the long-term strategic plan. I move.
Okay, we'll amend it to say that.
I second the amendment.
Okay, so let's see, Son.
Okay, all in favor of the motion?
Let's see, Son, read the whole thing back, okay? With these changes first.
And consistent with the strategic plan, a motion was made to approve the installation of the third pickleball court not to exceed $50,000 to be paid from the long-term capital fund.
Okay, all in favor signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
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 Okay, passes unanimously. Very good. We've done 10, 11 COVID plan. Who's going to take that?
I'll give an update on COVID. I emailed this to everyone today, so you have a copy. Again, this is not the right time to encourage indoor activities or group events. Coronavirus cases are rising precipitously in the US, including Florida. Hospitals are low on ICU beds, staff, and PPEs. I've got links for a number of graphs if you're interested in them. State of Florida is continuing to advise that face coverings be worn, refrain from gatherings of more than 10 people. And this clearly does not include multiple groups of 10 people separated by 6 feet apart. Avoids crowds, close spaces, and close contact. As I've mentioned before, the recommendation is that communities look to keep their percent positive below 5%. As of today, I emailed you the data from yesterday. Before a meeting, I found out Collier increased to 191 cases today, over 181 yesterday. Yesterday, we were at 15.2% positive with a 7-day rolling average of 11.4. Lee County's running about 9.3 and 9.6. Lee County's doing a lot more testing than Collier County, so their percent positive is resultantly lower. Again, remind you that pandemic fatigue is not a sufficient reason to stop public health measures to control the pandemic. We need to be socializing outside and in groups of less than 10. I congratulate homeowners for recognizing that having Thanksgiving in the dining room was not a good idea. Based on this public health information, I recommend that we rescind our recommendation to open the Oak Room and until our positivity rates are 5% or less for 14 days in a row, and ventilation issues have been documented as being corrected. We need to ensure that we have 6 to 9 air exchanges per hour in all areas of the clubhouse. Ventilation issues in the fitness center should be resolved immediately. I have not seen anything new about that. There still does not appear to be much ventilation in the fitness center when I'm there. There is some motion of air, but doesn't appear to be anything close to 6 to 9 air exchanges an hour. I think we should establish criteria for closing down. I also encourage that we remind homeowners that They should be wearing masks when they're not 6 feet apart. There's a number of card players and game players using our facilities that are not wearing masks and are generally 1 to 2 feet apart. And I think the others have been taken care of.
Do you have a mortality rate trend?
Yes, I don't, there's links to it. I don't have numbers in front of it. The one good news is that mortality is decreasing. The bad news is what's known as long COVID or continued COVID is getting much worse. There's as many as 20% of people who have been infected, even with milder cases, seem to be having neurologic or mental health complications. As many as 10% have cardiac complications. So the severity of the illness is still very high in terms of potential morbidity, even though mortality is improving with the medications we have. It's expected that with the lack of ICU beds, mortality may be increasing. That's not a problem for us currently here in Florida, but we can certainly expect it if we don't get this under control. Unfortunately, our state is not providing public health guidance the way other states are, with dials of when to dial up and dial down, and really think that we in Florida need to be looking at recommendations from other state governors, since ours is not willing to give us good advice.
Let's go to Terry, then Chap.
Yeah, let me just go back to the two critical areas that you mentioned, Lanny. I mean, I realize the data that you gathered is very valuable. One thing is that you're suggesting that we close down the Oak Room. The second thing that I wasn't sure of, are you also suggesting that we close down the exercise facility? Or what is your opinion on that? Because what you just said, you kind of said that we got a problem there, but you weren't clear with the recommendation.
It's my personal recommendation that we get more information about the functioning of our HVAC system throughout the clubhouse, including the fitness center. Mark has shared with me information indicating that our equipment has the capacity to provide good ventilation. The question is, I haven't seen anything indicating that it's actually doing that. There are ways to monitor, in particular, CO2 accumulation in indoor environments. So I think that we should be making sure that our ventilation is good, definitely before expanding opening. But I have no evidence that it's not, but I think we should be doing more to ensure that we're getting the kind of ventilation that it's possible. The problem is it just doesn't seem to run very much.
My feeling is this, and I kind of agree with you. I hate to mention, or I hate to say that perhaps we ought to hold down the Oak Room until we get to the 5% limit. I don't think that that is a terrible thing, except for what the impact is financially. But I also feel that the sports facility room should also be closed, because I think that the ventilation in there is even worse than the Oak Room, because it doesn't have the volume, it doesn't have the height. It doesn't have the height.
How do you guys know about that? We've already determined by our air conditioning companies, we have a 7.5 ton air conditioner for the fitness center alone that has so many CFMs that it is blowing, and it's on 24/7.
You're telling me that room has better ventilation than the Oak Room when you're talking about size versus the actual.
The Oak Room has a $40,000 AON unit installed in the ceiling to manage fresh air intake as a part of the overall structure. There's 5 AC units in the Oak Room and dining room with a lobby and the concern. The fitness, and those are 5 ton, 8 ton. I can only tell you that we've done the CFM math, if you folks want to try and find and hire a specialist that can come in and determine those levels, I will be all for it. I just don't know who, because I've gotten my AC guys with Total Comfort who did the installations of these specific systems, and they said, you guys are blowing so much air around right now for the size of the rooms. I don't understand what you really want to be issued. However, and they also said, we as AC technicians, we are not specific internal engineers. You'd have to get an engineering firm to come in and do the work to specifically tell you that. But
well, what is
right
your
now,
recommendation? What
according
is your
to our-
recommendation, Mark? That's what I would ask.
I would say at this point in time, I don't know of any real problem with the air quality that's in either of the rooms, especially upstairs. You got to understand, we have not opened the Oak Room. We are not intending to open the Oak Room until such time as A, we feel it's safe, B, there is an overwhelming need and cry from the residents, and C, we have actual help, that is employees, to manage that opening. Currently, we do not have those employees. It's very difficult to hire employees at this time with the other clubs that are running 6-7 days a week, wide open, doing 200 and 300 covers a night. They have deep pockets and they are hiring the employees that we need. Very difficult right now to hire anybody. And until we get somebody that can help in the kitchen and help on the floor, we're not opening the upstairs until we can provide that service. That's why we're looking at all these outdoor events, which seem to be more more popular anyways with the state of this situation. So
Let's go
we're not in a
to
burning rush to open up the
Lindia and then Jack.
So the way I look at it is, first of all, there's absolutely no reason why people can't sit 6 feet apart at a meeting in the clubhouse if you can exercise 6 feet apart in a small room. That's one thing. The second thing is, if you can't have gatherings more than 10 people outside, then you can't have 12 courts filled with tennis players, more than 10. I mean, somewhere there's got to be a correlation where what's good for the goose is good for the gander here. You can't have it both ways. Close down the Oak Room, you can't have more than 10 there, but we can have people 6 feet apart in the fitness. I mean, to me, it doesn't make any sense. You got to have a plan that is inclusive as far as limits. We've got to know why the fitness is so good for us to be 6 feet apart, but the clubhouse isn't. And they both got brand new air conditioners. So somebody explain that to me.
Jack, do you want to explain that?
No, I'm not going to try to explain it. But I would ask Lanny, if she's so concerned about air quality, to tell me what parameters she'd like to measure in the rooms to see how it's impacted.
I think we should probably either hire someone to be measuring CO2 or we can get a CO2 monitor for only about $70.
And then what would you do with the data?
That would tell us whether or not the air exchanges are actually happening. I completely support Mark's statements about the capacity of our HVAC systems. He said today that they're running all the time. I know when I'm in the fitness center, much of the time there is no fan sound at all. And then sometimes it comes on. It's hard for me to figure out that air is being circulated when there's no fan sound. But I'm just looking for an answer about that. But in terms of our responsibility to our homeowners, an inexpensive CO2 monitor would be all that would be necessary as a.
Why didn't you just recommend a CO2 monitor instead of going through this this long-winded approach criticizing the whole facility?
I don't mean to be criticizing the whole facility.
Well, you did. You basically called out everybody who had anything to do with the restoration of the building and said, you don't know what you're doing.
No,
All
I
right,
didn't.
yeah, let's go to chat.
Let's take a breath here. Mark, turn on your speaker, will you? First thing I want to do is for everyone to understand what our current approved recommendation is for the Oak Room and the fitness center. My understanding is the Oak Room is open for Friday night dinners as soon as we can get the help. Right, Mark?
Yep.
All right. My
And that is at-
understanding of it.
That is at 50% capacity.
Right.
social distance. Right.
My understanding of the fitness center is, I'm less clear on that, but it's essentially open with restrictions we've put on it. Correct, Mark?
That's my understanding, yes.
All right. So now I'll go back to Lanny. With that being where we are now, I believe what your recommendation is that A, we just close down the Oak Room until further notice, correct?
Correct. It's new information to me that.
Okay, that's
it's not-
fine.
It's
I'm not
not
arguing
open.
with it. I'm just trying to understand. And what is your recommendation for the fitness center?
My recommendations for the fitness center include assessing the ventilation with a CO2 monitor and limiting the number of people in the center to 8 at a time. Those are my
Okay.
recommendations for discussion.
Out of at least that.
Because I don't think they should be 6 feet apart. I totally agree with you, Lindy. It's not a matter of it being okay for them to be on top of each other in the fitness center. There is a good paper that came out today showing that ventilation in a fitness facility, the type that is sort of with big garage doors, so they have a ton of ventilation, that even though a trainer exposed 50 different participants to COVID, that nobody got infected because of the good ventilation.
All right, now.
Sorry.
Here. So basically what your recommendations are, and they're not in the form of a motion yet,
Correct.
is that first motion would be to close down the Oak Room completely until further notice. The second motion would be to restrict participants in the fitness center to no more than 8 at a time, right?
Correct. That's correct. I also, a minor thing that I recommended is to clarify that masks be CDC recommended type, specifically no exhalation valves and no single layer mask. They've come out now with some clear guidance there.
All right, Mark.
Well, I have no idea how you monitor the 8 people at any given time into the fitness center.
Or
It opens at
police it.
4 o'clock in the
Yeah,
morning.
the
And it closes
policing
at 10
issue
o'clock at
again.
night. So I'm not really
Well,
sure how that works.
I know other clubs are using reservation systems. I mean,
It doesn't-
I think I
It
think
wouldn't
that,
matter. How, even if you made a reservation, there's no way that we can monitor at 4:30 in the morning that those people are specifically going to enter. And if somebody else besides those 8 people enter at 4:30 till 5:30, who's going to be down there going, you can't come in, you weren't on the list?
the other people,
Or at 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night. How do we understand that?
the other people.
Or in the
How
interest
do they
of,
know who's on the other list? Yeah, are we gonna try to put print lists up for every day? Landy, the logistics are I just don't know how you expect to get that
So
done.
let's take these one at a time.
yeah, in the interest of moving this along, I'm going to make a motion, even though I don't. I'll make a motion for Lanny. I move that we close down the Oak Room completely.
Second,
Okay, let's talk about that. Linda,
Take a vote.
I disagree completely.
Okay, I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just trying to move this
I
along.
know.
go ahead, Lynn.
So you've got a great big room up there. You've got sliders that can be opened into the bar to open up. You've got sliders that go to the veranda that can exchange air. And we'd like to have a meeting up there to go over the strategic plan and place the chairs appropriately 6 feet. And nobody's going to be huffing and puffing and sweating. And we've got a brand new 5 or 6 air conditioners. Are you kidding me? We have to close it down? But we can go in the fitness center in that little tiny room and they can all go in there and lift weights and pump weights and run and jog and exercise and breathe hard. Come on. It makes no sense to me. And I don't want to close down the exercise room. I'm just saying.
Well, let's just deal with the Oak Room. That's the motion that's on the table.
Right. Who else has something to say? Jack,
Makes no sense.
My
Brownie.
comment is we don't close it down, leave it up to Mark and when we use it and how we use it, which from what I heard from Mark, we're not going to do a lot in there anyway. Okay.
Michael,
I'm just agreeing with everybody. This
Okay.
is not the volume and demand right now. So
Right.
why would we close it if there's no demand?
There's nobody to serve trays.
okay, let's vote on this.
may I just make a comment about that?
Sure.
It's new information for me and maybe for some of the others that Mark is not planning to have Friday night dining. That's the last thing I had heard. But there is plans to put 50 people in that room for the strategic plan. I will not be in that room with 50 people. And I advise that no one else be in that room with 50 people. That is a very high risk situation when you put that many people in one enclosed room.
Why is it more at risk than being on a tennis court?
Because it's indoors.
Who'll open the doors?
I don't know what the ventilation would be if you blocked open the front door and the side ones. That would certainly make it better. I still will not risk my health by being indoors with 50 people. The key is 50 people in that small a space, in contrast to 4 people on a tennis court that's twice as big as that space. So it's a matter of numbers.
I won't be there either, Lanny, and it's your choice and my choice.
Right. But I don't think we should, I think it's irresponsible of us to encourage 50 people to be in that room.
If 50 people show up for the strategic plan presentation, I'd be.
Like if you get 5.
I want them on Zoom. I don't want them in that room.
Okay, don't be there.
Hey, John Miho.
Yeah, I agree with Lanny, 50 people in that room. Up here, up north, they're closing the restaurants from a small percentage of people. They're closing the bars because they've gotten statistics showing that large gatherings are a real problem as far as spreading this stuff goes. So as far as 50 people being in the clubhouse, I definitely would not be there, even though I'm going to be down in Florida, but I would not attend.
Well, we can always go back. We can always go back and change. We can change the parameter of the strategic plan presentation right now, if we want to.
We don't even have a number on it, guys. There is no number on it. If
Not to exceed.
you want to change it, that's fine. But if 10 people actually want to come and watch that hour presentation from Jerry, I will be ecstatic, because I can tell you, I'm not hearing it There has been no interest on our point from anyone walking into this room, into this office, saying, when are you gonna do a strategic planning presentation? Zero.
Well, why don't we limit it to 15 people in that room?
It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't, you can say no people and put it all on Zoom. It doesn't matter to me. Or on, right now it's on, streaming on YouTube.
So Lanny, how would you feel
Doesn't
about
matter.
15 people spaced out in that
However you
room?
want.
I think that's a reasonable number for that room, but I don't think we should be part of the 15 because then you're not giving a chance for anyone to be there. So I deal with my problem that I wouldn't be there with 15. I mean, I haven't been inside with anyone other than my husband since this all started. And so I won't be there. But
I think we should go back to the,
Go back to the original motion and
I'm
vote.
trying to keep some order here. I think we should go back to the strategic plan discussion and decide to make it entirely on Zoom. Okay? But I think,
Second.
but I think, and we'll get to that. But I think what we need to do now is vote on the motion that's been made and seconded to close down the Oak Room. That's the motion that's on the table, and we can go back to the strategic plan issue in a minute.
Okay, let's vote on that now. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand and signify by saying aye.
I,
Aye.
Okay, we have two. All those not in favor signify by saying nay.
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 Okay,
Okay,
so motion
Now.
fails.
now let's go to the motion to restrict usage of the fitness center to no more than 8 people at a time. That's the next thing we have to decide. So
Okay.
I move we restrict usage of the fitness center to no more than 8 people at a time.
We have a second.
Second it.
second,
Okay, discussions. Now, first of all, I'm in the fitness center often enough. I've never been in there with 8 people.
Right,
I've never seen 8 people in the fitness center.
I agree.
In fact, I rarely see more than 5 or 6. And I don't think I've seen 6 in there. So I'm wondering, what if we just put a sign up in there that said that we recommend no more than 6 people at any given time in the center and leave it at that? Brownie, then Michael.
Well, my comment was like you. I don't have any trouble with 8, but I don't have any trouble as long as we make it self-regulating. If you go to
Right.
the fitness center, there's 8 people there, you just come back later. You know, no big deal. And I think I agree with you. I don't think it's an issue. I don't think it'll happen once a month if it happens at all.
Michael.
I thought we already had a number of, to restrict the volume in there.
I had recommended it, but it wasn't passed.
Okay. I think 8's too many. Haven't been in there many, many, many times. 6 marginal.
Yeah. Have you ever seen more than 6 in there at any given time?
No, I wouldn't go in even in other conditions where there was more than 6 in there.
I have before COVID, when I used to play cards in the multi-purpose room, I've walked through there where there's been a lot of people in there.
Yeah, I've been in there with more.
Yeah.
Okay, Terry.
Yeah, I think we should go back to science. I mean, we're using 6 feet as the key to this. If we just get a ruler out and figure out how far it is that people can actually be 6 feet apart, that's how many people you should allow in there. Even though we'd like to have them wear their masks, but we're not mandatory that we're doing that. But if you do that, I don't think it'd be more than 4. It's not a very big room.
It's
Um,
not.
I- It's
John,
bigger than
John
8.
Behoke. John, go ahead.
Yeah, you know, you might be seeing less than 8 people now, but come January, February, and March during the busy time, you know, it could become an issue. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't go into
The problem is that 8 people definitely eat up more than 6 foot of space. They really do.
8
I mean,
people
it's
is
not
a
a very
lot.
big.
I'll grant you, 8 people is a lot. I've never seen it, but it is a lot.
Let's
So,
change it to 6.5 people.
well, I mentioned, well, let's go with Lanny's recommendation, and I still have an issue with policing that and enforcing it. My proposal is put up a sign saying no more than 8 and let them police themselves.
And call,
Lanny, then Lindy.
Paul, I support your idea strongly for now, and then I just think we need to monitor it and to see what happens if we have a large number of people coming back. I did base the 8 on walking around and feeling that there could be, one person on a bike, one person on a treadmill, one person on a elliptical, et cetera. So I do believe, in contrast to Terry, that there is 8 stations where people can be separate from each other. I think that's a good place to start. And if it seems too crowded, we can reduce it. I think the sign is a great way to go with
Yeah.
it. And then just see where that leads us.
I'm going to reword the motion.
How about withdrawing it?
No. I move that we make every reasonable effort to restrict usage of the fitness center to no more than 8 people at a time via the posting of a sign.
Second.
Okay, Lindy, a second. All in favor of this motion signify by saying aye and raise your hand. Okay, Terry and Lynn, I didn't get your vote.
aye.
Well, because I had something I wanted to add to that.
Add to
We can
what?
add it now.
I'd like to add it if I could. So the sauna is in there. Now,
No more than 8 people in the sauna. Go
If
ahead,
there's
Lynn,
more
I'm
than
sorry.
that, you have to take your clothes off.
here's my point. How many should be in that sauna? My granddaughter, what?
One.
Go ahead.
My granddaughter was in there, and when she came home, I said, I mentioned I wanted her to be home earlier because I didn't like her in there, in the evening. And she said, well, there were 2 other girls in there with me. So 3 in the sauna?
Once again, we can put a sign on the door, but we don't have any.
I know.
There's no policeman standing there.
I know, I'm just saying.
You can make the same motion as the fitness center with the number that you want and with the enforcement being via signage.
I agree.
Fine, 1.
I like that.
Yeah, 1.
Well, I think it could be 2 if they were in the same family.
Well, of course, but I mean.
You can't discriminate like that.
Well, you can. Guidances do say, restricted to occupants of 1 home at a time.
Okay, I think that's a given. So are we saying put a sign up on the door?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, let's do that. Okay. Can we move along?
No, I think we got to go backwards. I
Let me,
move
can I ask a
that
question, Chap? Why do
Sure.
we have to have motions about everything we're doing that's just good business sense,
I don't know. I don't know. That's the
personal
way-
policy sense? We've been
Let's keep plugging, gang. We're pretty close to the conclusion of the meeting. Let's
All
keep
right.
rolling.
I move we make the strategic plan presentation entirely by Zoom.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
I think it should be spaced out. If you have 8 in that space in the fitness room, recommended. I think you could recommend whatever the space is divided by whatever, that many in the clubhouse. I just don't see the point of closing of not allowing things in the clubhouse when it's space is space. 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. I don't see why one is good and the other one isn't. I'm not even saying 10 people want to go to the clubhouse. I just think people are paying their dues month after month without any problems. And everything's closed down for them that's inside unless they go up to the fitness. And I think it should be fair and equitable. They want to go to the clubhouse and go to a meeting and be safe and spaced apart. Why can't they? A lot of people are
Lanny.
comfortable with Zoom.
Lanny, go ahead.
I don't have any problem with a very small number of people in the clubhouse. The Florida guidance is groups of no more than 10. So I think that's the science that we should go by. It's not just a matter of space, Linda. It's how many people's germs are circulating within a space. And when you get beyond that number of 10, you begin to have a geometric progression of the likelihood that you're going to be infected. So it's not just 6 feet equals 6 feet, no matter how many people you have. So I would modify Chap's motion that it would be no more than 10 people.
Lanny, we're talking 10 people inside with masks, and you're talking 8 people without masks in the fitness.
Right, but that's neither here nor there. Let's stick with this particular motion.
Again, I'm going with the public health guidance from the state of Florida Department of Public Health. Avoid gatherings of any more than 10 people.
Okay, Chap, will you amend your motion?
I'll amend it any way that will fly.
Okay, can we have a vote?
Yeah, don't amend it. Let's just vote.
All right, well, then let's vote on the original motion, which is the strategic plan meeting will be entirely by Zoom. That's the motion on the table.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor of the motion signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
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 Do you have that, Cezanne?
Who disapproves?
Brownie, I think.
Yeah.
And Jack stepped out.
What was my chance? I'm sorry. I had to take the call.
We just voted have the strategic plan activity by Zoom only.
And what's the vote so far?
The vote is Brownie said no.
6-2.
6-2. I'll say no.
6-3. Okay.
And Goodrow, you said you approve or disapprove?
I approve.
Okay,
All right.
now I want to tell Lanny something on the subject that's going to make her very happy. We discussed at the EC meeting, if we get to the point where we're going to have vaccines, that Sterling Oaks is going to volunteer the use of our facility as a venue for that, if anyone wants to take us up on it.
Sounds great.
I don't think that'll be an option. It's going to be very well controlled by pharmacies and doctors. I don't think we should.
I just want Lanny to know that we don't ignore everything she says.
Thank you, Chad.
With the vaccine supply, they're not going to have giving it out in locations.
It's a nice gesture, Chap. Appreciated.
Okay. Well, they have blood banks and.
Well, the other problem, let's be practical. Both of these vaccines that are currently due to come out have to be stored at, one of them at, I don't know, -40 and one at -100. We don't have that. We don't have the facilities for this, okay? It will have to be done at a pharmacy or a doctor, someplace that's set up with the right gear and have the place to even store the vaccine.
A hospital.
Okay. So there's no way you're going to give these vaccines in a place like this without, we don't have that refrigeration capacity at that low temperature. You got to have dry ice.
Okay,
All right, well,
let's move to
Not going to be an
the
option.
date of our next board meeting, gang. It looks like we're suggesting December 16th on this, but I have a conflict on that day. So why are we not doing the 17th?
Because we were trying to line it up with Schoenfeld or whatever his name is.
I think for Jerry, he should just record something and we can post it on our YouTube channel.
yeah,
Oh, it was Schoenfeld, right?
as long as we're not going to be in person to ask questions.
Yeah, you can't have 300 people maybe on Zoom and have the ability for anybody to ask questions because he'll just disappear.
Hmm.
You want to try for Thursday, the 17th then?
And leave Jerry on the 16th?
Yep.
Okay, how do you all feel about that?
It's going to be Zoom anyways, so we'll just set him up to speak to everybody, send out a link to anybody that wants to watch the video, and then we'll record him, and then we'll make sure that that's also available down the road if they didn't get to tune in as it was live.
Are we going to have any capability for these people to email questions? Not that he would answer them at that particular time, but sometime in the future.
We could ask that they email questions to him ahead of time. And then he could say, I have an email question here from, John S. that asked the following, and answers it there.
Something like that ought to be appropriate, because if they don't get the opportunity to some shape and form of communicating, they're not going to be very receptive, even if there's only two people. One of them is going to want to write an email.
That's fine.
We could also give the opportunity for them to email the questions, and they could be addressed the next day at the board meeting. We should be able to answer most of the questions. So we could put that on the agenda on the 17th.
Good point.
That's a possibility. Yeah, that sounds good.
What time is the board meeting on the 17th?
1:30.
And the Zoom on the 16th is 9:00 a.m.?
Yeah.
That's what he has available.
That's the 16th at
9 a.m.
9 on the 16th. Okay. We're all together on that? Very good. Brownie, you're okay with these dates?
As far as I know, I think there's not on the calendar to have my boss's meeting. It's usually the fourth Monday, fourth Thursday. That's the third, and it's with Christmas. I'm assuming we don't have it unless he decides to have it early. But at this point, it's not. I just checked my calendar. It's okay at this point.
Okay, very good.
I got one thing I want everyone to put in their memory bank. For every $10,000 in cash we use for something, it reduces dues by $1 a month. In other words, next year, if we decide we've got $150,000 in cash we can really use for operations, that would reduce everyone's dues by $15 a month. So just keep that in mind.
Okay.
Good point.
Okay, I think we're ready for adjournment. I need a motion.
Move it.
Terry?
Second.
Lanny seconds. All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
You can't vote, Mark. You're not allowed to vote.
Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you very much, you all. We accomplished quite a bit today, and we did it with under 3.5 hours. So congratulations to all of you.
Mr. Goodrow, can you please